Wow, so Pokemon's only 2 days away. This is a video I wanted to make for a long time, and so much has happened since I wanted to make this video, coming from the leaks to official trailers to the whole Game Freak lied scenario. Before you comment though, there's a lot of things I gotta clarify. One, we are not going to get into leaks at all, as I'm avoiding leaks myself. I don't even know how all the final evolutions of the starter Pokemon looks like. Two, the title is not clickbait. I'm saying that Sword and Shield is going to be a terrible RPG. Not that it's going to be terribly competitive, not that it's going to be a terrible game, and absolutely nothing that has to do with animation or assets. We are simply talking about the gameplay that involves in the mainline story or single player mode of Pokemon Sword and Shield. This is because this is how I enjoy the games the most, and this is where I can talk the most. I can't talk a lot about competitive, and I'm not a 3D animator that can say, oh yeah, just drag in the models and pretend like I know what I'm talking about. But it is very scummy that Game Freak outright lied to us about reusing models. There is so much negativity surrounding these games that even the most super Pokemon fan that would go hardened Onyx for anything Game Freak put out has gone impotent for this game. Ha, peen jokes. But the main thing that got me worried about this game was the difficulty and how enjoyable the actual single player story mode would be for this game. Now, I was hoping that this would be a nice departure from Sun and Moon, seeing as how we had the wild area, but then the news came in that EXP share would be mandatory, and that's when I started getting very worried. See, my biggest concern with the lack of difficulty when it comes to Pokemon Sword and Shield is that Game Freak on all accounts is trying to avoid grinding. It's like the company's mantra at this point. To the point where one of the selling points of Little Town Hero on the Nintendo website is that unlike most RPGs, there's no need to fight weak monsters repeatedly to level grind in Little Town Hero. Most RPGs. You mean bad-paced RPGs? God, Fire Emblem Three Houses, oh my god, I love you so much, you're like the perfect RPG. Now I know, having grinding isn't necessarily a good thing, it doesn't mean difficulty. Shofu put it best, that people often mistake tediousness with difficulty. The problem isn't that there's party-wide EXP share and swapping out your weaker Pokemon for your better Pokemon that just carries your team. I get it, that's an old model and that doesn't necessarily equal difficulty. In fact, one of my favorite games, Super Mario RPG, has a shared EXP through the whole party as well. But the main difference is that game is paced very well, that there's enough battles that it would be annoying to fight everyone so you avoid some battles, or if you fight everyone, you'll be paced perfectly on par with the bosses. If you skip a few, you will have a challenging yet entirely doable boss battle if you manage the game systems. And this is where I'm worried. I have zero confidence that Game Freak will have a well-paced leveling system. I'm very confident that just going through routes and fighting most of the trainers, you'll be so overpowered to the point where you won't need to care about the game's mechanics. I really do like the new mechanical changes that they did with natures, as well as transferring moves from common Pokemon so that you can more easily get egg moves. I love those changes. Those are fantastic changes. In fact, I was worried in the beginning that they were going to remove natures altogether because it would be too challenging. The problem is though, is that being aware of these things, being aware of abilities, natures, your moves, I can guarantee you will never take those into account in the main game because you'll just be so over leveled. And that's what makes it a terrible RPG. There's all these mechanics put in place, but you can just outnumber the majority of the opponents when you just go through the game fighting the trainers casually. There just won't be any fun in it. Now, I know since Sun and Moon, it'll just tell you if you have a type advantage, which memorizing a web of type advantages doesn't necessarily make a better RPG, but it will remove some difficulty in the tactical planning. I recently played Omega Ruby, and I had a fantastic time with that game. I simply just removed EXP share, did all the available trainer battles, and used Repel in most of the caves. I was being careful to level up my entire party equally, never feeling like I was actually grinding, but just consistently switching out and, you know, taking down other trainers' Pokemon, swapping out my Pokemon, and using the whole team. What I found, since the game was balanced for EXP share, was an actually difficult and fun experience. Because these gym battles and Team Magma boss battles were getting down to the wire, that's when I had to rely on things such as natures, such as using the stat items, like the battle stats items as well as the perma stats items. And that's why it was so fun. Because the battles were so close, I had to rely on these game mechanics to get every single bit of an edge. And I know that some of the enemy trainers will use X special or X attack or whatever in battle item as well, but I can guarantee you in Sword and Shield you will never find that you need to use that against trainers. Very mild spoiler discussion is that not all of the moves will be in Sword and Shield. Since we're just talking about base single player game, not having the entire national dex doesn't matter because we're just talking about it standing as an RPG experience. Removing moves makes it a lot worse because the less battle options you have, the less complex it can be. The more options you feel like you have in an RPG, the more fun it is. Without getting too complex, but we're talking about Pokemon here. Another thing is I'm very worried about the linearity of these games. Yeah, we might have the wild area, but I bet that inside of the caves, or I guess mini dungeons of the game, will be very linear. Just like Sun and Moon was, and I had such an annoying time with that. And you don't need to make a complex area to explore with areas closed off by HMs, since I know there's no more HMs. But if the areas are just linear to explore, it does remove some of the fun of having an RPG looking for these rare items, looking for these invisible items. Maybe even finding a spot where Pokemon only appears in that certain area of grass. Now that could still be in Sword and Shield, but the problem is that it would just be on the linear path or the linear hallway, I guess, designed areas versus a more complex area to explore. Uh-oh, do I have enough repels? Are the Pokemon way too over-leveled in this area, but I'm trying to get that item? Do I have an escape rope because I'm kind of lost? Or a Pokemon with digs? Things like that. Even going back to the old Final Fantasies, one of the biggest declines going from earlier Final Fantasies to a game like 13 is the linearity of the areas. Linear doesn't equal bad. But in these type of RPGs, the exploration is a very good thing, especially when looking for secrets or venturing in territories where you get your ass kicked. Just sounds boring to go through a hallway and go in a bunch of cutscenes. That's probably why I never finished Sun and Moon. And the final reason why I think that Sword and Shield is going to be a terrible RPG is that you can swap your party whenever. I do think that that is actually a good change. I think it's badly designed that the first time you're going through an area or sub area or dungeon or whatever it be, like a gym, that you can swap your Pokemon whenever. Now in the trailer it says you can use the Pokebox for almost anywhere. What I think would be a good design is that only after you finish the sub areas can you then swap out the Pokemon for your box from whatever. Either you just reach the next town or you beat all the trainers or whatever. The point is there's a feeling of being removed from the safety zone. Only that once you come back, it's simple. Just like when you're crazy over leveled in Earthbound, when you come back you can just step on enemies. The first venture should be a challenge, but then when you backtrack, it doesn't matter. And of course, accessing your box from wherever in the wild area makes complete sense for me. And that's about it why I think that Sword and Shield will be a terrible RPG when it comes to the single player experience. Just to recap, the scaling will probably crazy over level you, making no need to worry about the actual game mechanics, such as them telling you about the type advantages, using battle items and using permanent stat boost items, caring about natures, and all this could have been avoided had they not made it mandatory EXP share, like in Gen 6 and 7, where the progression was actually pretty challenging if you don't have EXP share on those games. But now it's mandatory, and I never felt like I needed to grind in those games when I didn't have EXP share, but just that I really had to know what I was doing. Removal of moves takes away options, making it way more boring, and linearity coupled with the fact that you can access your box from wherever initially when you enter a sub area removes a feeling of being taken from the safety zone, as well as daring to go off the beaten path just to find rare items or rare Pokemon, which is the best part of any RPG, going into the danger zone just for rare items. Overall, I think I'm gonna like the game just going into it expecting a cute experience. This might be the first Pokemon game where I actually dabble in competitive since they made it so easy and convenient now, so that's awesome because that adds post-game content for me that I probably wouldn't have done. I know I'll enjoy the game, but I have pretty damn low expectations. happens. Well, that was my random dump of thoughts. What do you guys think when it comes to the gameplay? Do you guys think the actual raids will be interesting and challenging? Is the reuse of models or the fact that Game Freak lied to you just a straight up boycott from you, which I completely respect? Or are you like me and at this point it's just like, eh, it's gonna be a game with cute animals and cute graphics. I'll probably get it just because it's adorable. I'll be streaming Sword and Shield Friday morning on my Twitch over at twitch.tv/MrDodo_YT. I'll see you guys later. Bye.